During the season, it is essential that you take care of your body, especially as we pass this halfway mark, past New Year's. The accumulation of fatigue from the first half of the season will start to kick in. And if you're not doing your best to take care of your body, then you may risk missing those games towards the end of the season, or being at a disadvantage to players that have taken care of their body up until this point in the season. I tend to suggest that athletes have some sort of active recovery incorporated into their in-season training schedule, and particularly for the day after a game or after a really tough training session, I like to do some mobility work just because it's very low impact, keeps the joints moving, gets synovial fluid through, which can get nutrients to help them recover, and generally a good way to try and stretch some of the muscles as well. And if you've been on this channel for a while, you know that I'm quite big on collagen plus vitamin C before doing any sort of joint movements, or generally before any workout, just because our joints will get stressed through anything anyway. You want to use it about 30 to 60 minutes before the workout is what studies show. And the one that I personally use is the Mobilizer by Avea Life. You can see here, the Mobilizer, it does have vitamin C and UC2 collagen in it, and it's in the form of a tablet. So if you want to use the same one as me, you can check the links in the description, or that will pop up on the screen, and you can get 15% off of that. I like to look at the body just from the bottom up. So we'll start with the toes. Start off with some golf ball switches, or toe curls in a way, just to try and get the balls of the feet moving a little bit, and also just a bit more grip strength on the toes, working on the smaller fascia that is underneath the toes there. An alternative for this would be to maybe use a towel and just try and curl it towards yourself. But we just want to try and work on a bit of toe strength. It's really not the most strenuous thing in the world, and probably extremely undertrained by most athletes. So we can probably get some sort of advantage there, even if it might not necessarily look like a mobility type of exercise. But how much control do you have of your toes? That's a part of the body that needs to be utilized to just maximize your athleticism. Our feet are in constant contact with the ground, so the more control we have, the more power we can produce, the better an athlete we can be. And then I superset that with some toe alternations. I like to use supersets in virtually every workout that I do, just because it saves time. So all you're doing is trying to alternate between lifting your big toe and then lifting the rest of your toes. It'd be pretty cool if you had full control over each individual toe and you just lifted one at a time. Most people don't. In fact, most people lack enough toe mobility to even lift the big toe itself. So a way you can scale this back is to actually just hold down the big toe to lift up the others, and then vice versa, hold down the other toes so that you can lift up the big one, and then work your way up to doing it standing. You can even do it seated as well at that point too. And that's just to get some range of motion through the toes, get the toe fascia working, because there are muscles in there. And if you're interested in doing this routine, then head over to elitesmartathletes.com, head to the online coaching section, sign up to the online coaching, and we can get to work and implement this into your routine as well. And then we move up to the ankle. I have a 3-way ankle pulse circuit that we do. So first one is kind of a more dorsiflexion pulse, where just pushing the ankle forward, essentially, trying not to lift the heel off the ground, so that we're actually working the ankle joint as opposed to just moving your foot or moving your knee forward. You also get a good stretch in the Achilles by doing this, which is quite nice, because again, it's a part of the body that tends to get injured a lot for many athletes in high impact sports. Dorsiflexion is very integral to being able to move athletically anyway. And if you have some sort of knee pain, it's also a good way to slightly get comfortable with your knee moving in front of your toe, because that is generally a position that's quite vulnerable for a lot of people who do have knee pain. And as we progress through this workout, we try and reduce that type of pain there. And then we also work on moving the ankle side to side. We work on some eversion and inversion. Eversion is moving it outwards, and inversion is moving it inwards. Reason for this is partially to work on the positions that you would find yourself in an ankle sprain. Again, a lot of high impact sports, ankle sprains are relatively common and somewhat inevitable in a way, and out of our control. But if we can kind of get used to the sensation of our ankles being in those positions, we can somewhat train the tissues in those areas to be able to at least have the ankles kind of bounce back slightly quicker, so that you don't completely roll over and then it ends up being like a grade 2 sprain or a partial fracture or even an ankle break. Instead, it's more maybe just a lighter sprain that you can recover from a bit quicker, somewhat maybe even in the game. So it's just to get comfortable with those positions, and it happens both ways as well. Usually an inversion sprain is more rare and probably more damaging. But still, if we just train it both ways, like there's nothing to lose by doing it. So the focus on it is, again, to try keep the heel on the ground as much as possible. But yeah, just to get comfortable with that range of motion so that our ankles are moving as much as they can and just utilizing the motion that they have. And you can also see here, I'm trying to maintain some sort of arch in my foot. I have extremely flat feet, so it's a very conscious effort to try and do that. But I think that that's very important to do just to, again, work on being in better foot positions. Now we've gone toes, ankles. So next up that kinetic chain is the knees. So here, similar thing, we're just working on the ranges of motion the knee moves. So the knee can move side to side. So we're working on some internal and external rotation. Now you can see that, my ankle is kind of leading the way, my foot's leading the way that the knee is trying to move, but I'm holding my knee, or I'm holding like my thigh, so that I can somewhat isolate it, at least just have that sensation of isolation, where you can really feel your tendon, your patellar tendon, like moving to the left and right. And yeah, you just get that sense of motion. It's not a direction that we tend to train a lot, but it is one that if you're in a knee twist, it can cause a serious injury. But also, again, just to get that fluid going through the joint properly, we're just getting it from every angle that we can. So yeah, internal and external rotation, these are directions our knee can move, so it shouldn't be neglected. And then we can do something else, which is called a knee pump. This, again, more relaxed, which is lying down, and this is more to work with the flexion and extension of the knee. And you're essentially just straightening it up and down. You get a slight hamstring stretch with it too, especially if you've got tight hamstrings. And again, we're just working on now, it's like that forward and backwards motion of the knee. This is very good for if you've got particularly sore knees after a session. There's no external load, there's no weight bearing in this exercise. So it's very easy to just get that range of motion back. And then maybe later on in the day, your knee should start to feel somewhat fresher. And by the next day, you'll be good to go again. And then we go up to the hips. So obviously, traditional 1990, which is hip internal and external rotation. So similar to the way we were moving with the knees side to side, our hip joints are ball and socket joint, which have 360-degree range of motion. And 1990 is a great way to get into the internal and external rotation. Very simple, again, on the floor, nothing too stressful there. And then we have the foam roller hip shifts, where now we're working, kind of moving it forwards and backwards in that ball and socket joint. Again, probably something that is slightly more undertrained in some athletes, working on those different ranges of motion within the hip and mainly around the groin muscles as well. You will feel it if you have tight groins, feel this one especially, but again, just getting some movement through that joint. So it's nothing particularly strenuous. We're just trying to move through the joint. And lastly, I like to look at the trunk and spine and maybe a bit of upper body mobility as well. So I like to use a T-spine opener, but I modified it slightly to add a semicircle with your arm. So you do the standard T-spine opener, you have something underneath your leg that's up just for accountability and to make sure that you're moving through your spine properly. You extend out, but then you rotate over your head in a semicircle way with that arm. So what that does is allow both your spine to move through a different plane of motion, but also your shoulder to kind of get through a range of motion. And if you're extending your arms and maybe you just have sore biceps or anything else, you're straightening the arm, getting a little bit of a stretch there too. So a bit of bang for buck there. I've suffered from a shoulder dislocation before. So as you can see here on my right arm, which is the one that I did dislocate, I can't quite extend it out to touch the ground. With my left arm, I think I have a bit more mobility where I'm able to touch the ground and get a bit further on. It's just a good way to just kind of combine it and save time. To finish off, superset that with some cat-camel breathing or cat-cow, whatever it is you want to call it. The focus is really to do the breathing. So you want to inhale as you are curling your back and exhale as you push back out. You want to really engage your core as you're breathing, just to make sure that you're working those muscles that are around the trunk and around the spine. Otherwise, it's a very simple one here. And also just getting some breathing techniques in to help with that recovery part of the workout too. Particularly good if you have any sort of like low back nerve pains. It really hits those lower lumbar areas and just get some motion through there to maybe get rid of any niggling issues there. So there you have it. That is the in-season mobility routine that I tend to go through usually once a week, if not twice a week, depending on how many games there are. But I usually do it the day after a game. I tend to do 3 supersets, maybe 10 reps. I don't want it to be too long. It usually takes around half an hour to get through. So it's just something light that you can do in the morning straight after the game just to get your recovery going. Or you can do it immediately after the game, to be fair. But I like to do it in the morning. I find it more peaceful to do in the morning. You can check out my online coaching if you would like to implement this into your routine fully and get full progressions to be able to go through it, or any adaptations that you might need personally. But Otherwise, I'll try to keep on coming out with some workout breakdowns. I think that it would be very useful for you guys to see, you know, what I do and why I do it. I'm not sure how coherent this video is, but you know, we'll figure out as it goes. Obviously, do all the good stuff on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, share. Trying to get back on the YouTube grind consistently with like proper long form videos. So yeah, I got some workout breakdowns coming for you. So I appreciate you guys as always, and until next time, stay blessed.